And we are here at the B20 Summit, and joining me now, I'd like to welcome Brand South Africa CEO Neville Matjie to speak about the impact right here within the B20 Summit, and of course, just how much Brand South Africa is really going ahead and showing this South Africa that needs to be presented to the world from an economic and an investment perspective. Neville? Just the other day we had a discussion, so always good to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and hello to all the listeners. Yeah, so absolutely, we're here today. The B20 is taking place. We're excited about the opportunity that it presents. A lot of the countries have actually become in full force, over 42 countries represented here. The team at B20 was still inundated with requests for additional people that wanted to come and attend the session, but they've had to resort to all the side sessions that are taking place in support of the G20 week. The impact has been truly phenomenal from what we've seen already from a hotel occupancy perspective. They're sitting at 95%. Of course, once we get to the Leader Summit, that'll of course increase. A lot of the prime ministers, some have arrived today, others are arriving in the next day or two in preparation for the Leader Summit. Tomorrow, of course, the president will be here to come and deliver the closing address, which is a big accolade for the business community. As you know, the B20, through their work streams, actually compiled their over 30 recommendations that they've put forward. The beauty is it's not just recommendation at a policy level only, but they've also included an implementation plan, which clearly indicates that from the policy, it can go straight into implementation from a short, medium-term to long-term perspective. So you're able to then look at those that are cascaded for short-term, those for medium-term, showing that B20 is not just a once-off, a tick on the box. It's really more long-term than short-term.
You know what's interesting, Neville, is that the commitments need to turn into action. You know, when you and I had this conversation, a few days ago, that is what we were stressing. But what we're looking for right here is that there seems to be that commitment that's going to happen. And South African businesses are committed. It's now for the international private businesses to come on board. From a Brand South Africa perspective, are you convinced that the international investors still see South Africa as this viable investment destination?
100%. A typical example, as you know, we are handing over to the United States as part of this process. The team from the US is here. The business team is here.
Despite the government perspective.
Look, I'm not going to comment on the government perspective because that's really for our Department of International Relations to mention. All I'm saying is, your question is the business committed? I'm saying to you, even we are handing over to business from the US and the full contingent is here. The full contingent from India is here. Full contingent from Indonesia, from Thailand, from Malaysia. They're all here in this B20 Summit to clearly demonstrate that from a business perspective, it's all about return on investment. It's all about where's the greatest opportunity. And why would they not be on the African continent, where we've got the largest population of youth, the gem of business opportunity is in this continent. And that is where they're focusing their energies. The G20 agenda is set by government. One of the critical pillars there is on critical minerals in terms of localization and beneficiation at source. That is what they're looking at. They're wanting to look at opportunities like those where they're able to then localize instead of just raw materials leaving the continent.
You know, Neville, an important aspect in all of this is small and medium enterprises. How do we get them involved? How do they have a stake within the economy? Because these are the businesses that are really the heartbeat of our communities. How important is it to make sure that they have a role to play in this economy of ours?
Very critical. You can't have, big business doesn't survive without small business. I think it's just how it is once you look at the entire value chain. So the voice of small business is here, definitely. They've been participating, and if you look at one of the work streams from G20s on small and medium enterprises, so they wouldn't have prioritized it if they were not important. So they're a critical component to the agenda.
Neville, from a Brand South Africa perspective, how would you define this year The discussions have happened. We are now obviously at this Leaders Summit. But from a brand South Africa perspective, how proud are you, number one, to see how South Africa has really taken this G20 presidency despite what we saw in Washington? I know we're not going to get into the politics, the trade tariffs. South Africa's held its own, hasn't it? It's shown itself to be diplomatically sound, but also from an investment perspective, there's been this reach to make sure that the international community, the international businesses are seeing South Africa as this investment destination, not just for the short period, but from a long one also.
Very proud. We manage perceptions about destination South Africa. Perceptions really can either make you or they can break you. A clear example, 42 nations in South Africa in this week is a clear example of where we are and where we stand from a perception perspective. I don't think, in light of the geopolitics this year, if the fake news was believable, I think a lot of them would not be here. It's a clear example of what they believe in South Africa. We come from a dark past. We are a big protector of human rights, and we've demonstrated that unapologetically. Number two, we are an economic hub of the African continent as Africa's largest economy and most developed destination. Number three, we don't act as big brother. We are here to work within the African continent, within the ambit of the African Union, but at the same time ensuring that the application of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is realized. That is part of our agenda, and I'm really proud of, from a brand perspective, how the brand has done. We are really showcasing South Africa as a critical destination and a real powerhouse within the continent.
Neville, always good having you on. Always good to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, and assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.